Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As always, it is an honor to rise in this House on behalf of the people of Oshawa. They have entrusted me to be their voice here in Ottawa. Today I rise to speak on Bill C-9, the government's proposed Combating Hate Act. Let me begin where I think we all agree. I believe every member of this chamber rejects hate and extremism. Every member should want Canadians to feel safe in their homes, in their schools, in their places of worship, and in their community spaces. Police and prosecutors must have the right tools to protect Canadians from real threats. But the question before us is not whether we oppose hate. The question is whether Bill C-9 is the serious, effective law Canadians need, or whether it is a flawed, politically motivated gesture. Canadians have lived with rising hate in recent years. Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, indigenous, and Christian communities have all faced threats, vandalism, harassment, and violence. It feels like this government isn't really serious about combating hate crime. As we see this bill arrive now, seemingly timed to coincide with politics. The sad reality is that Bill C-9 feels to be less about protecting Canadians and more about protecting a liberal political standing. After the October 7th massacre in Israel, when Hamas brutally attacked innocent civilians, Jewish Canadians here at home immediately faced an unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism. Synagogues were vandalized, students were harassed simply for attending school, Jewish communities lived in fear. What was the Liberal response? They waited and introduced this bill so they could say to Jewish Canadians, "Look what we did for you." But at the very same time, they moved to grant recognition to Palestine, despite the fact that Hamas still holds innocent hostages to this day and was even responsible for the deaths of multiple Canadians. That sends a troubling mixed message. It shows this government is more interested in political symbolism than in confronting hate with urgency and clarity. My friend Paula Kelly, when she heard about this bill, sent me this. "My rant," she said. "I feel it was done to tell minority communities, especially mine, the Jewish one, look what we did for you. Look, see, we care. Then an about turn and they recognize Palestine at the worst possible time. They make me so angry. And how stupid do they think the Jewish community is? And may I add, laws are already in place. We just have to enforce said laws." And Mr. Speaker, let us not ignore another reality. Anti-Christian hate has been rising in Canada, yet it receives little acknowledgement from this government. Since 2021, more than 100 Christian churches have been burned or vandalized, many of them confirmed arsons. These were not just buildings, they're places of worship, community centers, anchors for families and for seniors, entire congregations that have been left traumatized. When synagogues are attacked, when mosques are threatened, when gurdwaras are defaced, leaders rightly stood and denounced those crimes. But when Christian churches were burned, the silence from this federal government, this federal Liberal government, was deafening. If we are serious about combating hate in all its forms, then we must call it out consistently, no matter who the target is. Hate is hate. Every faith community deserves equal recognition, equal protection, and equal respect. One of the most troubling aspects of Bill C-9 is how it carelessly mischaracterizes cultural and religious symbols. For millions of people around the world, the sacred symbol of peace and prosperity has been part of their faith and tradition for thousands of years. Yet in this legislation, that same symbol is lumped together with hate imagery as though it were born of extremism. I want to be clear. These are not just abstract legal concerns. I have heard directly from communities in Oshawa and across Durham region who are deeply troubled by how this bill mischaracterizes their sacred symbols. For them, what the government is labeling as hateful is in fact a symbol of peace, faith, and prosperity, something that has been part of their cultural and religious tradition for thousands of years. These residents told me they now worry that their heritage could be stigmatized. or even criminalized because of vague and sloppy drafting in Bill C-9. They feel unseen and unheard and unfairly associated with hate that has nothing to do with their faith. It is my duty to bring their voices to this chamber. If we are serious about combating hate, then we must do it with precision and cultural understanding. Sweeping up sacred traditions in the same net as extremist symbols is not only insulting, it undermines the very fairness Canadians expect from their lawmakers. Another concern is that Canada already has hate laws. The Criminal Code already prohibits advocating genocide, promoting hatred, and committing hate-motivated crimes. Bill C-9 does not create new protections, it simply makes certain hate-motivated conduct a separate offense. So what does that achieve? More paperwork, more duplication, more symbolism, perhaps even shorter sentences are possible. Canadians don't need symbolic legislation. We need laws that are clear, enforceable, and effective. The bill also removes the requirement for the Attorney General's consent before hate propaganda prosecutions. That safeguard has long ensured that prosecutions are pursued responsibly and consistently. It has prevented frivolous or ideological complaints from overwhelming the courts. Police and prosecutors themselves recognize its value. Removing it risks abuse and misuse, specifically in private prosecutions. And then, of course, there's the definition of hatred, as mentioned by many of my colleagues before me. Bill C-9 codifies a definition from the Supreme Court, but deliberately strips out important words. By lowering the threshold, the government risks capturing speech that, while offensive, remains protected in a free democracy. In a country like ours, people must be able to express views, even unpopular ones, without fear of criminal prosecution, so long as they do not cross into true hate or incitement. Again, these laws already exist. When the scope of criminal law is expanded carelessly, we risk over-criminalization and uneven enforcement. We risk focusing on political optics instead of the real threats Canadians face from violent extremists and repeat offenders. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than symbolic gestures and flawed drafting. They deserve laws that confront hate directly, consistently, and effectively, while also defending the freedoms that define us as Canadians. We must protect synagogues, mosques, churches, gurdwaras, schools, and cultural centres from threats and intimidation. We must also protect free expression, peaceful protest, and civil liberties. Bill C-9, as written, does not get that balance right. Our duty in this House is not to rubber stamp legislation. It is our duty to scrutinize it, our duty to challenge it, and to demand better so that every Canadian can live free from hate, free from fear, while also free to speak, free to believe, and free to assemble. That is the balance Canadians expect us to strike. That is the balance we must deliver. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nor is the government looking for a rubber stamp from the Conservative opposition. We would like to ultimately see the legislation go to committee. And just to highlight a couple very key points, it's important to recognize that this is in fact a campaign promise. By making it illegal to physically obstruct or intimidate to prevent access to a space used primarily by identifiable group for religious, educational, social, cultural, or sporting activities. This means mosques, synagogues, churches, schools, cultural community centers, and more. Criminalizing the intentional incitement of hate by displaying hate symbols. There are significant changes proposed within this legislation, and the government is putting it forward based in terms of the commitment made to the electors. I think it is important that we allow it to go to committee and see if the Conservatives have amendments so that they can propose them. Listen to it.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
I thank the honourable member for his comments and his questions. Of course, we agree. We want these hateful acts to be criminalized. They already are. We think that they should be prosecuted. I would argue they aren't to where they should be yet. But I think that the laws are already in place, as mentioned by my previous colleagues, in Section 319, 318, and others of the Criminal Code. They're already there. We just need to enforce them.
Questions and comments? Question et commentaire. The honourable member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to ask my colleague, because the question from our delightful colleague across the way from Winnipeg seems to indicate that the Liberal government which put forward this bill believes there are no redundancies built into it, that the things that they are criminalizing are not in fact already covered by existing law. And I wanted to ask my honourable colleague about this, because we know that intimidation is already a crime. Threats are already a crime. And we have several sections of the Criminal Code that would already apply to the very scenario the Liberals are claiming needs a new section. So I'm wondering what she makes of that, and the fact that the Liberals don't even seem to understand the law that they're trying to amend.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
If you applied that same...
Thank you very much. I respect that question, because it's very true. Canada already criminalizes the willful promotion of hatred under 319, creating new offences under 319 2.2. So this is duplication. It feels like more politics than public safety, but it does go a little further, and the things that we are concerned about include removing the Attorney General, right, and changing the definition of hate. That is a very serious thing to do. We have to look at that very closely, and we look forward to doing so.
Questions and comments? Question et commentaire. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At a few points, I tried to get an answer from my Conservative colleagues. Maybe this time it will work. In the bill, there is an exemption for hate symbols used in a religious context. Does my colleague not find that inconsistent? And would Conservatives be willing to reconsider that situation in committee? It provides a right to one group of people. Some people, you can use hate symbols for religious reasons, but not for political reasons. I think that's inconsistent.
For Oshawa.
I thank the honourable member for his question. I think the clarity has to come on whether a symbol has been culturally appropriated by, and I think he's referring specifically to the Nazi Hakenkreuz. It has been culturally appropriated from the Hindu religion, and it is thousands and thousands of years old. And I think that my Jewish friends understand that. There's also a section in this bill that says any symbol that looks like that symbol, and I feel like it's just too vague, and it has to be clear.